everyone, I'm Shagun Agarwal, and in this video I'm going to explain you what the 80-20 rule is and how you can use this principle in your life to become more successful and to get further ahead in life. It has been used by various entrepreneurs, business leaders and young professionals, and they have seen their life change through the use of this principle. So let's get started. The Pareto Principle, or the 80-20 rule as it is called popularly, is a concept that says that 80% of the effects in your life comes from 20% of efforts. This principle has been applied in various fields such as time management, productivity, and resource allocation. 80-20 rule can be applied to anything in life. Let's take a few examples. 20% of the efforts is bringing about 80% of profits. 20% of sales professionals are leading to 80% of companies' profits. 20% of shareholders are bringing about 80% of wealth in a company, and so on. So, how can you apply this principle? If you are a student, if you are a young professional or a business leader, trust me, this rule will apply to your life in every small and big thing that you do. Tim Ferriss, the author of 4-Hour Work Week, suggests that entrepreneurs may achieve more in less time by focusing on the 20% of activities that yield 80% of the outcomes. Tim Ferriss shares several examples of how he used this in his business. The first decision he made was the prime example of a speedy return on investment, he explains. He contacted 95% of his clients and he fired 2% right away, leaving the most productive 3% to profile and replicate. He raised the pricing, dropped the customers that caused him the most trouble, and tried to locate and replicate the most profitable customers. The difference was noticeable almost immediately. He could successfully reduce 80% of the stress associated with his business while maintaining the same profit margins. Let us take a look at a few more examples where the 80-20 rule has been widely implemented and the success of it has been seen immediately. Microsoft, a big technology conglomerate, actually used the 80-20 principle in the year 2002, where its managers were instructed to only fix 20% of the bugs because those 20% of the bugs were causing 80% of problems to the software. Former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer said in a 3-page memo that one really intriguing thing they discovered is how many of these software bugs, a relatively small proportion, cause the majority of the problems. Approximately 20% of the bugs caused 80% of the problems for the software. So if it could work for a big company like Microsoft and the Pareto principle was proved in the company, then it can really work for anyone in their life. This principle became so widely accepted and successful that even a book called 80-20 has been published, where the author says that 20% of customers bring about 80% of the profits. So if we focus on only those 20 customers or on those 20% of activities that are giving 80% of the results, our life would become more profitable and productive. Perry Marshall provided another excellent example of the 80-20 rule. He said that we can easily ignore 80% of the roads in your city and only look at the top 20%. And you will see that the 80-20 rule will still apply. 80% of the traffic is on 20% of the roads. In the end, only 4% of the roads see 64% of the travelers. Through these examples, we see how business leaders and big companies use the 80-20 principle and saw it being successful. Now we can see how you can make sure that the 80-20 principle works for you. An executive at a big company, calendar.com, says that if you want the 80-20 rule to work for you, you have to identify the top 20% of your task, which require maximum time and energy in your life. He also adds that identifying these 20% of the task which are resulting in 80% of profits or growth for you is the key to the 80-20 rule. The rest of the activities are like thieves. They are stressing you out. They are wasting your time and energy. Those are the areas where you don't have to focus. You either stop those activities or you outsource it. For each task, ask yourself, should this task be labeled as high priority? Should this task be outsourced to someone else? Is this task giving me the maximum profit or is this task stressing me out? Does it bring close to my business core mission and values? Kevin Cruz, the CEO of LeadX, interviewed hundreds and hundreds of high performing achievers, and the answer that he got from each one of them was very similar. The high achievers said that they don't micromanage each and every task of theirs. They don't get into managing each and every task. What they do is either they let it go or they outsource it while they only focus on the major task, which are the ones that are making them go closer to their goals. Because micromanaging each and every task or taking care of it is absolutely impossible. If you want your life to go ahead, you have to focus on certain tasks, not all the tasks, because then your focus will move from the important task to the non-important task. So either leave the non-important task or get it done from somewhere else and only focus on the important tasks that are really your core business, that is really making you achieve a lot in life. But identifying those activities is the crucial part of the 80-20 rule. Let me give an example that I came across in my personal life. I was listening to the interview of Barbara Corcoran on a podcast, and there was one takeaway that I really appreciated and that everyone can follow, where she said that she only focuses on those tasks that only she can do. Suppose there is a client who's a highly valued prospective client, and only Barbara can talk to him or her or the company and convince the company to become the current client. Then that is where she will pitch in and talk to the client. If that client is not high value and the talk can be done by any other employee of her company, she will never do that task. She also gave the example of exercising. Can any person exercise on anyone else's behalf? No, right? You have to be physically present. You have to be doing the exercise. So she said she only focuses on those tasks that cannot be replaced by anyone. If you focus on everything that you need to do or all the to-do things in your list, you will have never enough time, money, and the energy. What you need to focus is on the top 20% and leave the rest or outsource the rest. A few days ago, I was reading the book The Psychology of Money. The book talked about how even if 80% of the decisions in our life go wrong and 20% work, that is also enough as long as the value of those 20% is a lot. And the author over here gave the example of Amazon. Let me share with you that example. There was a product launch at Amazon. It is not intuitive to think a failed product launch at a major company would be normal and fine. Intuitively, you would think that the CEO should apologize to the shareholders. But CEO Jeff Bezos, shortly after the disastrous launch of the company's Fire phone, said, "If you think that's a big failure, we are working on much big failures right now. I am not kidding. Some of the other bigger failures are going to make the Fire phone look like a little tiny blip. It's okay for Amazon to lose money on the Fire phone because it will be offset by something as the Amazon Web Services that earns billions of dollars for the company." Imagine how the 80-20 rule worked for Amazon and for Jeff Bezos. You would wonder why a failed product launch for a company like Amazon wouldn't matter for Jeff Bezos. It didn't matter for him because that was a very small chunk. He said that if I put my focus into this failed product launch, I would not be able to focus on the other 20%, which is giving me 80% of the profits. And that could be anything, Amazon Web Services or Amazon Kindle or Amazon Commerce. His point was that I have to focus only on the 20% because the value of that 20% is much more than these small failed product launches. And if I focus on these failures, then I will not be able to focus on those business segments that are highly profitable in nature. Let's take the example of another successful person, Warren Buffett. We all know Warren Buffett's success story. We all know the investments and the amount of profits he makes out of them. It's all in the open, it's all for the public to look at. But what people don't look at his failed investments. At the Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting in 2013, Warren Buffett said he's owned 400 to 500 stocks in his life but made most of his money from just 10 of them. It was even said by analysts that if you remove Berkshire's top investments, its long-term track record is pretty basic. It's not whether you're right or wrong that's important. What's important is that how much success you see when you're right and how much failure you see when you're wrong. You can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune. And that is what happened with Jeff Bezos, Microsoft, or Berkshire Hathaway. They focused on only couple of items, couple of activities that were giving the maximum results. To stay true to the 80-20 rule, if you really want to follow the 80-20 rule, the Pareto Principle in your everyday life, what you have to do is, first you need to identify those activities that you're doing, then identify the top activities that are giving the maximum results, and then leave the rest of the 80%. And how will you leave the rest of the 80%? Is by saying a no. Suppose there's a client call and it's not important for you to take it. Someone else can also take it. You have to say a no to the client. You have to say that I will not be available, but someone from my team will. So saying a no to something which is not adding much value, not contributing to the 80% of the result, it's not worth your time, energy, and money. As Steve Jobs put it in Apple's 1997 Worldwide Developers Conference, when you think about focusing, you think, well, focusing is saying yes. No. Focusing is about saying a no. This means before saying yes to any new time commitment, ask yourself, is this within the 20% of work I do that impacts the business more than anything else I do? If the answer is no, don't take it on. Instead, delegate the responsibility to a person you trust or decline the opportunity. So here we see that after the success of the 80-20 principle, each and every company executive came out in the public and talked about it. Whether it was Steve Ballmer, whether it was Steve Jobs, whether it was Warren Buffett. They all came out in the open and talked about how 20% of efforts are giving 80% of the results. So just focusing on those 20% can save a lot of time and energy, because that time and energy you can refocus back to those 20% of the activities. That will enhance your productivity levels and your profit margins to a great extent. The 80-20 rule has worked for a number of executives, business leaders, and entrepreneurs, and it can really work for you. It is a very, very simple concept that needs just a lot of awareness and little bit of action. I hope you implement this video. Please do share your experiences if you do plan to do so, and I hope you like the contents of this video. If you do found the contents of this video useful, please do like, share, and subscribe, and share it with any business leader, upcoming executive, or young professional you know in your network, so they can also benefit from this principle as big and small companies have done in the past.